Hello everybody, my name is Josip Fortuna from Siemens SRL, and today I will present a demo for the Data Access API. So the Data Access API is basically a server from which the consumer can retrieve data blocks by authenticating each request. So the way the consumer and the data provider communicate with each other is by using a non-repudiable protocol. So right now I will briefly present the non-repudiable protocol. At first, the consumer has to make a request to the provider by sending the ID of the data block. The provider has to generate a proof of origin and send back to the consumer the proof of origin and the encrypted data block. Then the consumer has to validate the proof of origin, generate a proof of receipt, and send to the provider the proof of receipt. Then the data provider has to validate the proof of receipt and generate a hash on a JSON that looks like this one and send that hash to auditable accounting in order to receive a proof of publication. That proof of publication together with the symmetric key used for encryption is sent to the consumer. After this, the consumer has to validate the proof of publication and check if the hash of the key and the hash of the decrypted cipher block correspond with the hashes found in the proof of origin. After the validations are done, the protocol is over and the consumer has access to the data. Okay, so right now um, the client has to authenticate each request to Data Access API. The data transferred between the client and the provider is persisted in a database. Right now, the mode for data transfer supported by the Data Access API is the batch data transfer, and each transfer between the provider and the client is encrypted using symmetric key encryption. Okay, so at first for the client to make a first request to the Data Access API, he has to authenticate on an endpoint of the Data Access API and log in using the UPort application uh, together with the consumer credentials, and the client will receive an access token. We have to copy this access token, and in order to make a first request, we have to put the access token in the authorization header. Okay, so at first we can receive the first block ID by sending this type of request to the Data Access API. The Data Access API is running on a deployment node. The client is running on localhost. We send the first request, we get the first block ID, and after this we can get the cipher block of the first block. We can even request an entire file from the Data Access API if we send a request like this, and the data is persistent on the client. Each request between the client and the Data Access API is persisted in a database, one on the provider and one on the client. Okay, so if the client wants to see how much he has to pay, he has to make a request that gives the first date and the end date, and the consumer will get back a detailed uh, a detailed response about how much he has to pay. Okay, so this was the demo for the data access API. Thank you.